evening, everybody. Before I give my formal address this evening, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Shabbaton Choir, along with their musical director, Stephen Levy, and the Chazanim, Lionel Rosenfeld from the Western Marble Arts Shul, Shimon Kramer from Riverdale Jewish Center in New York, and from Stanmore and Cannons Park United Synagogue, Johnny Turgle.
Oh was composed by Stephen Lee.
that was wonderful, and I'm delighted to say that we will hear a little more from the choir later on in this evening. The Chief Rabbi, Rabbanim, Sir David Frost, distinguished guests, lords, ladies and gentlemen. Before I say anything more, on behalf of us all, I would like to wish the Chief Rabbi and Elaine Mazel Tov on the arrival of your new grandson earlier today. And I'd like to welcome you all formally now to this event, which I'm sure will be a truly memorable evening. How do you mark the retirement of our beloved Chief Rabbi? He's given so much to us all for 22 years. He's worked tirelessly for the entire community. He's shown inspirational leadership and is admired and respected by all faiths. He is a true light to the nations. Together with my fellow trustees of the United Synagogue, we decided that there should be an event organized by the US specifically for US members, so that we could express our appreciation in an appropriate way. And we decided to organize a large event and invite as many members as possible, and there are around 2,000 of us here tonight. And as you may know, when the tickets went on sale, they sold out in 72 hours. We wanted to include a retrospective look at the Chief's huge achievements over his years in office. We've made a film so that numerous people who have worked with him could express their gratitude for all that he has done. We've included some beautiful music from the choir he has made his own, and to invite a large number of children from some Jewish schools, which we know are so important to him, and who we will see later. And that's how the ingredients for tonight came together. And the entire evening has been expertly coordinated by my Vice President, Russell Kett, and we're extremely grateful to him. In this week's Sedra, Bahalosaka, there is a remarkable instruction from God to Moshe. We are told that the temple, the altar, and the menorah are to be permanent for every generation. But 2 new silver trumpets, chatzetzeros, have to be made by Moshe and by each successive leader. One lovely explanation of this is that the trumpet is a symbol of how a Jewish leader proclaims their faith and inspires their generation. Each has their own unique personal message, and so they need their own trumpets. Well, our Chief Rabbi has made truly amazing trumpets. His drushes, his books, his teaching combine to make him the best communicator in the Jewish world today. And I'm sure he will go on to even greater heights in the next phase of his illustrious career. But what is real leadership? John Quincy Adams, the 6th president of the US, and that's the United States, not the United Synagogue, he said, if your actions inspire others to dream more, to learn more, to do more, and become more, then you are a leader. Chief Rabbi, that quote could have been written specifically for you. On a personal basis, it's been an enormous privilege to work closely with you, to learn from you. You inspire us all to carry out our roles to the best of our ability, and you've made an enormous impression on the United Synagogue of the UK and the international community. And we have done more and become more because of you. And we thank you and Elaine for everything you have done. Tonight is also an ideal opportunity to mention the tribute dinner, which is being organized for the Chief Rabbi on the 24th of June. There are flyers in the brochures, and we hope that if you would like to come, you'll get in touch. I think that will also be a once-in-a-lifetime event. Sir David Frost, you've been a regular part of our television entertainment for many years. A journalist, comedian, writer, media personality, and you've interviewed many world leaders, including, famously, Richard Nixon. I believe you are the only person to have interviewed 8 British Prime Ministers and 7 US Presidents. And that one is also the US, the United States. We have huge respect for your perception and wit, and of course your interviewing skills. And we're so honored that you have agreed to join us tonight to conduct this interview with the Chief Rabbi. I'm also pleased that the head of El Al in Europe, Mr. Yaron Badish, he chose to sponsor tonight's event. Thank you. Under Yaron's leadership, El Al has developed a close relationship with the UK community. And I think all of us feel we are supporting Israel the moment that we get onto an El Al plane. And I'm so delighted that General Eliezer Shkedi, the worldwide president and CEO of El Al Israel, is here tonight. General Shkedi is described as the commander of the civilian wings of Israel. And as many of you know, before taking this post, he was commander-in-chief of the military wings of Israel. He led the Israeli Air Force. And I know that he has huge respect for the Chief Rabbi and affection for the community. And he has agreed to say a few words to us tonight. General Shkedi.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and shalom. It is really a great honor and a pleasure to be here this evening, to speak in front of such a distinguished audience on a unique event with you, Chief Rabbi, Lord Sachs. I am standing here as the CEO and the President of El Al. El Al, from my point of view, is the civilian wings of the State of Israel and of the Jewish nation all around the world. From my point of view, the relationship with the community, or being part of the community, is the main issue of El Al. And as I can see here in Britain, what we are doing lately is amazing. The relationship with the community is something that is very important, and we are doing it as main part of what El Al is doing. Yaron Badish is leading the brand here in Britain, and I really appreciate you, Yaron, and I think that you are doing a great job with all the community that is here, and not only in this hall. I would like to tell you, Chief Rabbi Lord Sachs, we met a couple of months ago, about 6 months, when I brought a unique Sefer Torah. We called it the Sefer Torah for the unity of Israel. We met, and I really was impressed from your personality, from your wisdom, from your leadership. And I can tell you honestly, on behalf of myself, but not personally me, but me, the people here, and the people in Israel, that your friendship and your support was very loud and very clear. And I would like to tell you personally about what happened with the Sefer Torah. We decided to write the Sefer Torah. We called it the Sefer Torah for the unity of Israel. It began with President Peres when he was invited to give a speech in Germany. he decided to give a speech in Hebrew in the Bundestag, Germany. And unfortunately, he didn't have the Sefer Torah with him. I thought it can be something more than symbolic that the President of the State of Israel and the Jewish nation will give a speech in the Bundestag, Germany, in Hebrew, with Sefer Torah with him. But he didn't have. So we decided to write the Sefer Torah. And he wrote the Sefer Torah with all the generation of Jews all around the world, from the United States, Britain, France, Russia, Italy, China, Hong Kong, South Africa, whatever. We brought this book here, and I was impressed from you, Rabbi, and with all the people of the community that wrote a letter. But I would like to tell you two stories about this book after we were here. The first one is that we finished the Sefer Torah a week ago, before Chag Shavuot. And hopefully the Sefer Torah will fly for unique events all around the world related to the Jewish community all around the world. And the second thing is more than symbolic. About a month and a half ago, we wrote letters in this Sefer Torah with the community from Germany and from Israel in a place named Villa Wannsee. Villa Wannsee is a place 20 kilometers from Berlin. In Villa Wannsee, in 20th January 1942, 71 years ago, the Nazis planned, write, and signed the program how to murder our nation, our families, all our families. And we wrote the Sefer Torah with a Jewish child playing violin, with the pictures of the 14 Nazis, Heydrich, Eichmann, and all the others, looking at us 71 years later, writing the Sefer Torah in Villa Wannsee. What can be more symbolic? So I would like to end my words on behalf of all of us, wishing for a world free of conflict, a world of peace. May God, who makes peace in heaven above, bring peace to all mankind and for Israel. Amen. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן.
I was elected as president of the United Synagogue in July 2011, which is almost 2 years ago. And during that time, I've had the remarkable privilege of working very closely with the Chief Rabbi. He is a wonderful colleague, teacher, and has guided me through that period remarkably. I have to say that in all my years, and I've had a very long career before in professional life, I don't think I've ever come across somebody who's had as much influence on me as the Chief Rabbi. He is just a really remarkable role model and a privilege to work with.
Occasionally I saw the Chief Rabbi with his late parents. What was interesting was to see the way he related to them. He was possibly as proud of them as they were of him. He speaks about the way his father encouraged him, that when he would ask, as a child, would ask his father questions where his father did not know the answer, how the father said, look, my education was so much, and I did not know the answers to these questions, but you will be able to do things that I wasn't. And it's impressive the way he sees his father has been the foundation of his own education.
It's 1991. I'm a student at Leeds University, probably on the way to becoming an accountant. And I attend a civic ceremony with the new chief rabbi. He's speaking. And he spoke about Jewish responsibility, about a decade of renewal, about how we had to really make sure that it was something for the young to really understand and grow with. And it made an impression, not just on myself, on many, many students at the time, who really took to heart this idea of, well, we have Jewish grandchildren, what's happening to Anglo-Jewry? And I can say personally, as to many of my friends, that's why I became a rabbi. I eventually created Tribe, focusing on the young United Synagogue. And again, the chief rabbi has always been such a supporter of making sure young people connect to Judaism. And for me, Tribe is all about that, has always been about that. And having a chief rabbi who, wherever he went worldwide, spoke about a Judaism that could relate to all ages, I think in some ways made my job and the job of all the young rabbis coming in easier, because we had a visionary who we could quote, who we could learn from, who we could talk to make sure we did the job that he inspired us to do.
I remember once, very early on in my career, we had a seminar for the rabbinate, and the chief rabbi was present. And the chief rabbi, as is his nature, gave a talk to us. And he spoke about leadership. He spoke about leadership, about to be a Moses, what it means to be a Moses, to be a leader of the people. And I was really only in the beginning. And I raised my hand and I asked the room, really, what happens if you don't feel like a Moses? And the chief rabbi looked at me and he said, Rebbe Elchanan, you're terrific. They love you. Just keep doing what you're doing. You're fantastic. And it made me feel so empowered, so special, that here was this great man in front of all my colleagues and giving me this feeling that I really could do something different, something unique and something special in my own way. He's not just there to be this leader, to be this great ambassador of Judaism. He's also a father. I've seen the softer side of him, the caring side, the embracing side. And that is something which has really touched me and given me the ability to do the work which I try to do.
Through the Chief Rabbi's writings and everything that revealed the stories, it's really made me emphasise how proud one should feel to be Jewish and just not to lose sight of where you've come from and your tradition and your family and your heritage.
The Chief Rabbi is a great speaker and he tells us great stories. He came to our children's service in Norris Lee and he spoke and it was a really good speech.
The Chief Rabbi is unique, I think, in the way that he is able to inspire you. Whenever you're in his presence, you come away thinking that this has been an amazing experience and you feel empowered to do things which you might not otherwise have felt able to do.
When I think of the Chief Rabbi, I think of a leader who lifts us up when we're down. And to be a Jew sometimes can be quite depressing, especially with the anti-Israel sentiment that exists and unfortunately is growing in some quarters of the country. And I remember we had the rally in Trafalgar Square, 60,000 Jews listening to somebody who was lifting the place. Remarkable to be there and to hear him. And certainly that message of wherever we are, always be proud to be a Jew. It's one of the most important messages for all ages in the 21st century.
It is really great the way that he has become the moral compass of the country. It's much more than just United Synagogue, more than just Anglo-Jewry. It's for the whole country. I think you hear people who are not Jewish who listen to his thought for the day, they read his piece in Credo, and they say he is the major moral voice in the country today from any of the religious leaders. And that's a remarkable position to be in. And this is the man. I mean, of course, the office is part of it, but this is the man who has taken the office to a level which is quite remarkable.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, as the Shabbaton choir and the Chazanim sing the now familiar fanfare of the Ashrei prayer, which was specifically composed for the opening of the Chief Rabbi Sachs installation nearly 22 years ago on the 1st of September 1991, please will you welcome the Chief Rabbi, Lord Sachs, together with Sir David Frost.
Thank you very much for that. Hello, good evening. What a privilege today. So am I. A faith question is at the beginning, and then we'll go right back to the beginning. But Chief Rabbi, do you believe in God, or do you know there's a God?
Well, you know, I think I know there's a God. The great news is, I think he believes in us, which is much more important than our believing in him.
Yeah. Actually, what's your first memory? How old were you? First thing you can ever remember?
Well, I'll tell you, for the first 2 years of my life, we lived together with my grandparents in a big, extended family in Seven Sisters Road opposite Finsbury Park. And my late grandfather was wasn't a professional rabbi, he was in the wine business, but he had his own synagogue, he actually owned it. And our wonderful head of El was telling us, General Shkedi, about the Torah scroll, which is our most holy object. And when we finished reading it, we wind it up and wrap it in its mantle. And as Frumkin's grandson, I was given the special role. My father used to lift me up when I was 2 years old, and I put the bells on the Torah scroll. And that is my first memory, and I think, if you've got grandchildren, lift them up and put the bells on, and your children may be grand chief rabbis as well.
When did you decide you'd like to be a rabbi? Or was it slow, or was it
very slow? It was very slow. We were already married, Elaine and I. Already had a career at teaching secular philosophy. And something, just burned in me to get involved in Jewish life. So I was 25 before I started studying for the rabbi.
So you were on the road at that point?
Yeah.
That's fascinating. And how did you meet Elaine?
Well, I think we have to share this fascinating piece of divine providence. Sir David and I went to the same college in Cambridge, Gondel and Keys. And because I did quite well in my first year's exams, they gave me a very special privilege for my second year, which was to spend that year in the rooms that you had as an undergraduate. The good news was there were magnificent rooms with huge, wonderful French windows looking out on the croquet lawn. The bad news is I spent the whole year playing croquet and nearly failed my exams that year. In my third year, a friend and I, a friend called Philip Skelko, who just joined us from Oxford, Philip became a head teacher, a very, very outstanding one, saw two young ladies who had just come up to Cambridge, and we decided to invite them. And I did something for the first and last time in my life. I cooked a chicken. Now, there's a Yiddish saying that goes, about the little village shtetl in the 19th century. If a poor man eats a chicken, one of them is ill. I added my little rider to it, which is if Sachs has cooked the chicken, everyone is ill. So the young lady who ate my chicken and survived was Elaine. And 3 weeks later, I proposed to her, and it was the best thing I've done in my entire life.
What would be your definition of love? Human love, so.
Well, love is giving. Love is forgiving. Actually, we have this division of labor. I do the sinning and Elaine does the forgiving. But I think, love between husband and wife, between parents and children, are the most sacred things in Judaism. We know that every culture has a rule that says, do unto others as they would do to you. Principle of justice. But the principle of love, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. You shall love the stranger. That comes into Western civilization through Judaism. So it is that kind of love between husband and wife that all the prophets saw as the relationship between God and the Jewish people. It's that bond, unbreakable bond of loyalty.
Actually, I remember I once asked Richard Burton that question. What is your definition of love? And he said, love is staying awake all night with a sick child or a very healthy adult. What's been the happiest moment in your 22 years?
Well, Sir David, I think today has not been a bad one, because today, 20 years ago, and it was a key moment in my chief rabbinate, I launched a campaign and wrote a book called Will We Have Jewish Grandchildren? And this afternoon, our youngest child gave birth to her first child. And that for me... You know, in Judaism, family and the home are very, very sacred things. So, you know, the love that brings new life into the world, the delight and joy we've had from our children and now from our 7 grandchildren. I mean, these are the really happy moments.
Absolutely. And in fact, back in 1994, you wrote a piece which was headed, "Will we have Jewish grandchildren?"
Yeah.
And, well, we have the grandchildren, as we know now. But so maybe we should make the question, will we have Jewish great-grandchildren? What's the future in that sense of Jewishness?
I tell you, David, the great privilege of these 22 years has been tiny little part of a Jewish community that really has transformed itself. The United Synagogue has become completely transformed. In the old days, synagogue was a place where you went to pray, and not terribly often as well. I love the story, you know, we have on Tabernacles, we put up this temporary booth for 8 days. And I heard this is a true story from a synagogue in South Africa, that they got a team of workmen to put up this temporary dwelling, this booth, this hut, for our Festival of Tabernacles. And the workmen were fascinated. What were they building? So they asked the person who knew most about Judaism, which was always the synagogue caretaker. So he explained to the workers about this Festival of Tabernacles. And the workers turned to the caretaker and they said, "You mean to say we're putting all this up for just 8 days?" And the caretaker turned and pointed to the synagogue and said, "That's nothing. They put that up for 3 days a year." So our synagogues, which tended to be 3 days a year or 1 day a week, have now become 7 days a week community centres. We've built more Jewish day schools in the last 22 years.
Well, that's probably perhaps your greatest achievement, what's happened there.
I think it's incredible. We've trebled the number of day school places in 20 years. And something extraordinary happened for 60 years, year on year, from 1945 to 2005. We were declining numerically as a community. In 2005, that turned around. And we've begun to grow slowly, but we are growing. So we are really the first generation in the history of Anglo-Jewry whose children know more than us about Judaism and whose grandchildren will know more still. And this is an achievement of the whole community.
And that's probably the most important contribution that your 22 years has made. You cherish that very much, don't you?
I think it's incredibly important. Confucius, who wasn't Jewish but probably ought to have been,
yes,
said, "If you plan for a year, plant rice. If you plan for 10 years, plant a tree. If you plan for a century, educate a child." And we have always put education at the very top of our priorities. And I am proud of the community of people who have built the schools, of parents who have sent their kids to those schools, and above all, of the children themselves, who fill me with pride every time I go into one of those schools.
What about a lot of people write about this a lot, so on. You did an article called "Why Does God Allow Terrible Things to Happen to His People?" And at the time of the tsunami, I think someone said to the Archbishop of Canterbury or something about, "How can you believe in a God who permits suffering on this scale?" What's your explanation of suffering?
I think God is within us, not outside us. And obviously there are times in our history, at the very dawn of our history, when he intervened in history to liberate our people from slavery. But God is a parent, and he gives us the freedom to be ourselves. But he teaches us. God is a teacher. He teaches us how we should act. And he is inside us. He gives us the strength to overcome every catastrophe. And somehow, that's something Jews have learned. We've suffered, I think, more than most people over the last several thousand years, never more so than in the Holocaust. And what an extraordinary story from General Shkedi just now, that in Wannsee, where they actually sealed their final solution, condemning all Europe's 11 million Jews to death. The Jews gathered there all these years later and said, in effect, Am Yisrael Chai, the Jewish people still lives. So we don't try and explain tragedy away. We don't say, why did this happen? Least of all do we say, what is God punishing us for? We say, what then shall we do? And God gives us the strength to save life, to rebuild shattered lives. And somehow or other, Jews have come through every tragedy, not looking back, but looking forward.
That's crucial, isn't it? Yes. Not looking back, looking forward. And in terms of people's looking ahead and praying and so on, what is your message to people who've tried to join a synagogue or whatever and have just somehow not been able to encompass the faith and so on, and so they're a reluctant atheist, reluctant agnostic. What do you say to them?
I say to them, come after the service and enjoy the whiskey. And then if they enjoy the whiskey and the fish balls, we say, listen, you can pray beforehand and you'll enjoy the whiskey even more.
That's great. That's absolutely. And as you look back on your life so far, and we've got more to talk about, but if you had your time so far over again, is there anything you would do differently?
I always say, somebody once asked me what it's like being chief rabbi, is it what you expected? And I said, the greatest kindness God ever does for us is he never lets us know in advance what we're letting ourselves in for. So I never second guess the past. Of course, any one of us, any leader certainly, will always make mistakes. You learn from those mistakes. You apologize, you make amends, you try and do better next time. But I've never said, what would I do if I had my life over again? I would say, here is this one life that God has given us. What am I going to do tomorrow? Not what should I have done yesterday.
Whenever people ask me my favourite interview, I always say the next one, because that's the most interesting thing. You are the next one. You are my next one.
Who have you got lined up next, David?
Don't know.
We're all retiring now. You know that.
Yeah, yes.
I became the first chief rabbi to retire before 70. Then Rowan Williams decided he was going to retire before 70. Then the Pope retired.
Yes.
I said to Rowan, what do you think, Rowan? We've started a fashion. He said, yeah, I know, and I'm worried about the Dalai Lama next. Actually, it turned out to be Alex Ferguson instead, but no.
And 4 days later, David Beckham was.
Yeah, indeed.
They're all catching on in the same way. But the loneliness is one of the things you've written about often, that loneliness, that Christianity, Judaism, faith can deal with the problem of loneliness, that loneliness is the worst, like solitary confinement, is one of the worst problems of life, yeah?
Absolutely. And, Genesis 1, chapter 1 begins with God saying, let there be, and there was, and God saw that it was good. And 7 times we read the word good. And it's fascinating to note where the words not good first appear. It's not good for man to be alone. And as a result, in Judaism, you're actually never alone. There was one time, I have to say this, happened before I was a rabbi, because I don't want it to sound bad, but we were living in a very, very Jewish neighborhood. And I said to Elaine, all those decades ago, wouldn't it be nice to go somewhere where no one recognizes us, somewhere where there are actually no other Jews? So we found a little hotel in the middle of the countryside, and when we got there, we discovered that it was full of all the Jews who wanted to get away from all the other people. We spent 48 hours avoiding eye contact. So you are never alone in Judaism. Somehow, all the things that in some other faiths people do individually, in Judaism we do together. So in some faiths you confess very privately in a confessional. In Judaism, we confess on the Day of Atonement out loud in public. We have sinned, or at least you probably have, something like that. So, whatever we do as Jews, we do together.
Fascinating. In 1980, or in the early 1980s, Chief Rabbi, there were 2,500 marriages conducted in United Synagogues, and now the figure apparently is down from 2,500 to 320. What effect will that have?
No, the marriages are actually increasing. I know that because to show each couple that we care about them and that they are special, I actually handwrite a card to every single Jewish couple who get married under my auspices. And I can always tell by the height of the pile, are we going down or are we going up? I think Jews are rediscovering the beauties of marriage. And I think somehow marriage needs consecration. It needs that air of sanctity, to feel that you are pledging yourself to something bigger than yourself. It takes a village to raise a child, is the African proverb, but sometimes it takes community and a tradition to sustain a marriage. So I think marriage, after having had this dip, is coming back in the Jewish community, and marriage is a very joyous thing.
How do you see the relationship between Orthodox and Reform developing in the next few years?
We had 15, 16 years ago, one of those moments, you're in the plane and the pilot says, fasten your seatbelts, turbulence ahead. We had a certain amount of turbulence about 16, 17 years ago. And I felt very strongly that we can't continue to behave like this, that we are one very small people, and every one of us, whether we're Orthodox or not Orthodox, whether we're religious or not religious, every one of us is precious in the eyes of God, so let every one of us be precious in one another's eyes. And I formulated 2 principles which have, I think, allowed us to work really well together ever since. Number 1, on all matters that affect us as Jews, regardless of our religious differences, let us work together, regardless of our religious differences. Number 2, on all issues that touch on our religious differences, let us agree to differ, but with respect. And as a result of that, we've worked together across the board, across all the denominations, in wonderful cooperation on welfare, on fighting anti-Semitism, on interfaith relations, on standing up for Israel. And we have one of the best relationships across the denominations of any community I know in the whole Jewish world. And I think that, it took that shock to the system all those years ago to say, no, we can't carry on like this, we've got to find a new way. And I think Jews have too many enemies out there. For heaven's sake, let none of us be an enemy to a fellow Jew.
how has the job changed from when it was founded back in the 19th century, the job of chief rabbi, and what changes have you made to the job that will be inherited by your successor?
Well, in the 19th century, nobody really knew what a chief rabbi was, you know. And I have a picture in my office of the chief rabbi of the first part of the 19th century, Solomon Herschel. And it's a Punch cartoon, I think, and it says underneath, High Priest of the Jews. I said very little has changed, except now the chief rabbi is the scapegoat instead of the high priest, but otherwise the same principle. But the thing is that every generation generates new ways of communicating a message. So we were very early in using internet. We were very early in using music and CDs. We're now, the choir that you've heard singing.
Yes.
We did a little YouTube video a few years ago, which has had 1.75 million hits. And not even the choir has that many close relatives. So, you know, so we're using the social media, we're tweeting, we're Facebooking, and doubtless we're flickering, only I'm not sure about that. So we're trying always, whenever there's a new medium, I always ask my team in the office and the team in the United Synagogue, how can we use this new technology to touch more people in more creative ways?
And, yeah, absolutely. And in addition, I mean, did you predict that your job would involve as much work as a politician, as a theologian?
I never anticipated this at all. I'll tell you how it happened. It happened in 1993. I was already 2 years into the chief rabbinate. If you remember, in 1993, in March, a terrible crime happened. A young 4-year-old boy called Jamie Bulger was killed by 2 10-year-old boys. And there were shockwaves went right through the country. I wrote an op-ed for the Times. And the next day we got a phone call from 10 Downing Street. John Major was Prime Minister at the time. And they said, would the Chief Rabbi please come around? The Prime Minister would like to talk to him. And that's how that relationship began. I went into 10 Downing Street. I sat down opposite John Major. And he said to me, Jonathan, what should I do about crime? I think I said, be against it, Prime Minister. But that was the first of many very close friendships with other politicians, on all of all parties.
But also politics within Judaism and so on. That sort of politics as well.
That kind of politics we've always had, believe you me. This is very, other people have conversations. We have rows, broigus is machloket. We have got more words in Hebrew for an argument than you can possibly even think of. Everyone argues with everyone else. I mean, for heaven's sake, Abraham argues with God, shall all the judge of all the earth not do justice. Moses argues with God, why have you done it? I think God actually chose the Jewish people because he loves a good argument.
That's a great point forward. I suppose that what on a piece of paper in your desk, what little bit of helpful message will you leave for your successor?
For my successor?
Yeah.
3 things. Number 1, don't read the newspapers.
Right. Yes.
Number 2, have a sense of humor.
Yeah.
And number 3, marry a good woman. And you're ahead. You'll get all the work.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. He'll be very grateful for that. Extremely grateful for that. How would you...
You remember what John F. Kennedy said when he got in? He said the worst thing about going into the White House was when we got there, we discovered that things were as bad as we said they were.
Yes. A great line. I remember that line when he uttered it. That was great. What are the most promising traits or trends in society today? Or do you think society, I mean, there's things going on that, well, take one example. I mean, you've come out very strongly against same-sex marriage. What to you is the serious danger of that if it goes through? Are we on the
Look,
road
I'm not
to hell?
strongly on that. I have said that in Judaism we don't do it. But I have not come out strongly, and let me be very clear on this, David. I know that we have in the Jewish community gays and lesbians who feel very, very shunned by the community. And I simply will not be part of that. I know that homosexuals were sent to the concentration camp, as were Jews. And therefore I will not allow any intolerance towards that in our synagogues. And I sat down 20 years ago with the Jewish gays and lesbians, and the encounter that we had was one of the most moving I've ever had. They said to me, "We know, Chief Rabbi, you cannot give a blessing to our lifestyle, and we are not asking you to. But we do ask you not to be insensitive, not to have your rabbis be unnecessarily hurtful in what they say in public. And please, could we have access to pastoral support if we need it?" And I thought that was a wonderful, wonderful encounter, and I've cherished that relationship ever since. We have a strongly defined sexual ethic in Judaism. It's more than 3,000 years old. But we do not seek to impose that on society as a whole. And I think religion should never seek to impose their view on society as a whole. And when you cannot buy into every single one of the elements of the faith, then buy into those that you can buy into. And therefore, we welcome everyone. Some people will not be able to keep those laws. Others will not be able to keep other laws. But in the United Synagogue, we believe in holding the door open to everyone and leaving judgment to God, who does it much better than we do.
What about Israel in the sense that obviously when Israel is on the right track and so on, it's very easy to praise them and so on and so forth. But how have you defined your duty when you think Israel is doing a wrong thing or an evil thing? Many people say, take for instance, I think it was 2009, was it, Gaza, where you had 1,300 civilian and other deaths on one side and 13 on ours and so on. How do you deal with that situation? As a moral leader, you obviously can't endorse things that you don't believe are right, but you have to deal with that in a rather tactful way, or?
David, let me be very straight with you. Israel would not fire one rocket, one missile, one bullet against any Palestinian if they had not been attacked by Palestinian missiles from Gaza, innocent civilians in Sderot, having to live their entire lives in fear of some rocket that may take them or their child. Would you live in a situation where your children, even in kindergarten, had day after day after day for months to go down into bomb shelters when every day you know your life is on the line? And would a single innocent civilian have suffered in Israel's campaign against Gaza if innocent civilians had not been used by Hamas as human shields? Now these are two horrendous.
The numbers are hugely suggesting that it was a slaughter. 1,347 versus 13.
1,300 people died in Gaza. I don't know how many tens and hundreds of thousands of civilians died as a result of the Western campaign in Iraq and Afghanistan. and I don't see the same moral odium attaching to the West. The West fully understands. I think we have to be blunt here. Israel is the country that for 65 years has sought peace with its neighbors, and every single time it has made a significant sacrifice for peace, it has been punished by its neighbors. After 93, the handshake on the White House lawn, the Oslo process, 94, the Palestinians began their campaign of suicide bombing. 2000, Israel pulled out of Lebanon and were rewarded by Hezbollah gathering a most enormous arsenal of missiles, which eventually rained down on the north of Israel in 2006 for 34 consecutive days. Israel pulled out in 2005 from Gaza and was rewarded with the missiles hitting Sderot and then Ashkelon and then Ashdod, and more recently in Tel Aviv, where two of my brothers work, and they also have to go down now to bomb shelters because of Hamas missiles from Gaza. Every time Israel makes a significant gesture towards the Palestinians for peace, the Palestinians respond by attacking Israel. What can Israel do if its neighbors checkmate themselves every time they hold out their hand of peace? Now, these are difficult moral dilemmas. And believe you me, there is not one Israeli soldier or any single individual I have ever met in the Israeli Foreign Service or its intelligence division who enjoys any of this. We're a people who hold life sacred. But if only those around us would do likewise, all the children in the region would have a future, would have hope. And therefore, let us be unceasing in our offer to all the people of the Middle East. Let us work together to make our children have a better tomorrow than they have today.
Wouldn't it be possible, for instance, to have done more to help the peaceful Palestinians, not necessarily members of Hamas, but I mean those people who are trying to build up a...
100%. Israel has some pretty peaceful Palestinians on the West Bank. The West Bank economy has been growing at between 7 and 10% every year since the Oslo process. Israel does help the Palestinians. Secondly, members of our community have set up in Ramallah and tried to set up in Gaza a microloan project to help Palestinians build their own new businesses and create an economic roadmap to peace. And Israel has done everything it can to do just that. But I think the real clincher came from the former head of the Saudi Arabian Navy, writing in the Times last November, who said, for all the world to see, don't the Palestinians realize they have more rights in Israel than they have in any other country in the Middle East?
And that was a Saudi Arabian.
Well, look, Israel is the only place in the Middle East where a Palestinian can get up and on national television criticize the government and be a free man the next day. And that is quite something. I also find it quite difficult, David, to see some of the churches criticizing Israel. I understand them, but do they not understand that Israel is the only place today in the Middle East where it is safe to be a Christian?
In this context, where did anti-Semitism start? Who invented anti-Semitism?
Don't know, actually. It's been around a long time. The first real recorded anti-Semite was a gentleman called Haman in the book of Esther, who clearly didn't like salt beef sandwiches or something or other. But he said there is this one people whose laws are different from any other people. So that very first statement, recorded statement of anti-Semitism, is, I think, also the most revealing, because it says that anti-Semitism is the key example of dislike of the unlike. Jews were different. In medieval Europe, they were the only significant group who weren't Christian. In today's Middle East, they are the only significant country that isn't Muslim. So Jews were hated because they were different. And you'll say, well, look, everyone is different. And I agree with you, but Jews were the only people who consistently throughout history stood up for the right to be different, for the duty to be different, for what I call the dignity of difference. They were the only minority group who throughout the centuries refused to assimilate to the dominant culture or convert to the dominant faith. So that is why I don't see anti-Semitism as a crime just against Jews. I see it as a crime against humanity, because difference is what makes life sacred. Because each of us is different, each of us is irreplaceable. And if that is the case, then a world that has no room, or any country, or any society that has no room for Jews, has no room for difference, has no room for humanity. And that is why I say anti-Semitism is a crime. Not just against Jews, but against humanity. Anti-Semitism begins with Jews, but it never ends with Jews.
Chief Rabbi, this has been a really special occasion for me, and the time's rocketed by, and I just want to say that it's been a real privilege to have this conversation, and please, for God's sake, keep on this refreshing attitude to the world that you have through every year of your hopefully only semi-retirement.
Thank you. So David... Thank you so much for this evening. Thank you so much for all you've given this country. And did anyone ever tell you you do a wonderful Michael Sheen imitation?
I don't know how you follow that, but I'm going to try. It's my privilege and pleasure this evening to say thanks to a number of people who've been involved in what you've listened to this evening, what you've heard this evening, and indeed what you still have to listen to and enjoy. First of all, to David, I have to tell you that that was a wonderful, wonderful conversation, which was led in a superb manner, as we've come used to expect from you. I have to tell you, I've been lucky enough to listen to 3 such conversations in recent weeks with people and the Chief Rabbi, and I have to tell you, just in case you were worried, you are right up there with the other two. I'd like to thank General Shakedi and the El Al CEO and El Al not only for what they do for us in keeping us safe in the skies, but for your warm words here today, and particularly for that wonderful story about the Sefer Torah. In thanking the Shabbaton Choir, I particularly want to make mention of Stephen Levy, his director, its inspiration, and the composer of much of the music which you have heard and will hear. They do a remarkable job for our community, and as somebody who's accompanied them for the last I don't know, is it 7 or 9 years, Chief Rabbi, now, on their missions to Israel, where they've entertained in so many hospitals, old age homes, schools, and places where people really have nothing much to look forward to other than the annual visit to the Shabbaton choir. We're very grateful for all that they do. I'd like to thank our wide team of Chazanim, some of whom you've heard, some of whom you'll still have to hear. And just to say how sorry we are that Stephen Leeds, the Chazan of Central United Synagogue, who is supposed to be with us this evening, is indisposed, not well, and we wish him a refuah shlema. I'd like to thank the pianists, and I'd like to thank the numerous members of the children's choir that will finish up the evening for us. I want to thank their teachers and the schools for making available their facilities for rehearsal. I want to thank, in particular, the President, the Chief Executive, and the HOs, Honorary Officers of the United Synagogue, because without them, there would not be this evening, and they've made it all very possible for us. I'd like to thank the staff and Madruchim of Tribe, that wonderful, wonderful youth organization that is the emblem of the United Synagogue. When we started Tribe, I think it must be the best part of 10 years ago, we hope to have, within 10 years, 5,000 members. And I don't know what the latest figure is, but I think we have something like 13,000 young people, energized, enthusiastic, and growing up to appreciate all the values that the United Synagogue has to offer. They do a wonderful job, they make us proud, and we're proud of them. I want to thank the members of the Office of the Chief Rabbi. Only the Chief Rabbi knows how valuable they are to him and how much work they do, both behind the scenes and in front of the scenes, and thanks to them particularly. To the unseen members and seen members of the CST, the Community Securities Trust, we thank them for looking after us as they do on so many occasions. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank all of you. It was your enthusiasm, the speed and the numbers of which took the tickets from 0 to sold out in 72 hours, for giving everybody involved the enthusiasm to make this evening the success that I hope it has been. Acharon Chaviv, last but by no means least, there's one name that I've missed out from our vote of thanks so far, and that is to the Chief Rabbi. Chief Rabbi, I had the privilege of working very closely with you for 9 years, and even since those 9 years, for the many years since then as well. In the same way as my successor Stephen has talked about the pleasure it is to work with you, I have to tell you that those years have not just flown by, but they have been amazing years. They've touched Judith and my lives like nobody else has ever touched them before. And to see the way you touch other people's lives, to see the way you have influenced our community, helped it to grow, helped it to develop, watch the successes that you've made, seen how you've dealt with some of the disappointments, and as you said, you don't look back, but you look forward. And we hope that as you now reach this new point in your life, it'll be something well worth looking forward to. And we hope that we may be given the opportunity, Chief Rabbi, of occasionally listening in to some of the things that you'll be doing in those years ahead. Chief Rabbi, thank you so much for all that you do. It is so much appreciated, as the audience have let you know this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, you may think it's all over. It isn't quite over yet. And I'd like to welcome back the Shabbaton Choir, their musical director, Stephen Levy, the numerous Chazanim that you will see, and hopefully you will enjoy that as much as you have enjoyed everything else. Thank you very much.
When he became Chief Rabbi in 91, the United States was very different how it is today. I would like to think, obviously I'm slightly biased as one of the directors of Living and Learning, that it's a vastly improved organisation. I think a lot of that is to do with the leadership the Chief Rabbi was given, not just to the synagogue, but to Anglo-Jewry as a whole. We need to attract the best and the brightest, and I think the Chief Rabbi has allowed us to do that. And certainly, now 22 years later, I think the synagogue is in a really strong position to continue to promote the brand of Judaism that the Chief Rabbi champions, that of modern Orthodoxy, that of centrist Orthodoxy, Torah Chachma, as he says.
The world of education, of Jewish education, is much, much richer thanks to his efforts. Far more Jewish studies teachers are now being trained with full qualifications. Jewish studies resources now are far more sophisticated and can match anything the secular world offers. Jewish schools are amongst the top performing schools in the country, so the educational world is much, much richer than it was 22 years ago.
We have to reflect the fact that communication is so much more rapid, that technology has moved us into a different world. And so that the modern world today is very different to how it was 22 years ago. I don't think the values are. And that's the great thing about the United Synagogue, that we still have the same values as our parents and our grandparents had, which are traditional Jewish values. And I think what we have to do is to make sure that those traditional values are made attractive for the next generation.
Let me tell you about our netball. It's really fun because all the other girls there are Jewish, and if we had played for a non-Jewish league, we wouldn't be able to play all the games because none of them are on Shabbat, they're always on Sunday. So we can play every game without thinking about what if the game's on Shabbat and we're not allowed to come.
Well, it's a tribe netball league and we have uniforms that show that we are from tribe. It makes us feel proud that we're Jewish and we're not ashamed to show that we are.
For me, the United Synagogue, I really like it because it's not enforcing anything on you, it's letting you do and practice Judaism how you want to do it, and then they inspire you and make you want to get involved more. And with the Poland trip, it really inspired me to become more involved with Judaism and do the leadership camp this summer.
There are so many new rabbis, so many young rabbis, inspired rabbis, who are exuberant, enthusiastic, and looking to really change Anglo-Jewry, to bring it forward, to embrace the 21st century, to be modern, to be open, to be inviting, and to teach and raise the bar of what all of our communities can do, to embrace everyone, to love everyone, and to take Anglo-Jewry and really move it into the future. That is the vision of the United Synagogue, and it's absolutely wonderful to be part of it.
We're trying to bring our message of authentic, inclusive and modern Judaism to the wider world, and I think it's very effective. We have something which is a great product, and I think being able now to be a lot more dynamic in the way that we present it is making a big difference.
Living and learning, people ask why such a sort of long term for education. I think one of the problems that we faced in Anglo-Jewry over the years is that education became something we taught rather than something that we lived. And I think the Chief Rabbi, through his teachings, has always been about living it, not just learning about it. So in some ways, living and learning, I'd like to think, follows the ideology of the Chief Rabbi, in that it's not enough to sit down and pore over text or learn general knowledge. It's more important to live that life as well. So certainly living and learning is trying, through our shuls, through our schools, for all ages, to make Judaism alive, to make it live, to make it breathe. And I think through the Chief Rabbi's books and his words, it's something that really inspires us daily to continue our jobs.
Chief Rabbi, when I received a telephone call just over 22 years ago asking me to conduct the Shabbaton choir together with Rabbi Lionel at your installation service, I could not have imagined the amazing journey we would all be going on together. We've recorded together. We've travelled together to communities here and abroad. We've presented innovative synagogue services together, including the annual United Synagogue Midnight Slichot service and the Yom HaShoah commemorations. And as Peter Sheldon just said, together with Rabbi Lionel, Shimon Kramer, and Johnny Turgle, we have travelled to Israel under your leadership on 8 amazing Solidarity Through Song missions, singing in hospitals, children's facilities, to survivors of terror attacks, and to those under constant threat in the north and south of Israel. Chief Rabbi, there are simply no words to describe your inspirational support over this time. And in recognition of this, and with a huge debt of gratitude, I have composed a new piece of music in your honour, which has been arranged by Raymond Goldstein in Jerusalem. The words are sung each Shabbat morning and are Anin Zemirot, V'Shirim Erog. I shall sing sweet songs and weave melodies. Ki elecha nafshi ta'arog. For my soul, it yearns out for you. In recognition of your incredible contribution to Jewish education, Anim Zemirot is being premiered this evening by 300 children from 11 Jewish primary schools. All from across the London area, by our pianists, Natalie Robert and Jessica Ansell, representing JFS, and by the Shabbaton Choir with our amazing Chazanim, Lionel, Shimon and Johnny. Chief Rabbi, ladies and gentlemen, Anim Zemirot.
friends, I want to thank on your behalf our two lovely young gifted pianists from JFS, Jessica Anderson, Natalie Roberts. Thank you so much. And now can we please welcome back Rabbi Danny Bergson, cousin Avromi Freire. On the 24th of November 1984, one of the most famous musical recordings in history, Band Aid, took place in the studio of Trevor Horn in West London. And on the 30th of April 2008, we recorded in the very same studio a composition by our musical director, Stephen Levy, written with the encouragement of the Chief Rabbi, to celebrate the 60th anniversary of the State of Israel. As of this morning, this song has received on YouTube no fewer than 1,736,655 hits. Requests come in from across the world for the composition and the arrangement. And this song will now bring to a close this unique tribute to our Chief Rabbi. And so I ask Chief Rabbi Lord Sachs, please join us on stage. And sing with us the words with which General Shkedi ended his earlier address to us. Oseh shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. May peace reign with us, our people, indeed, in the whole of this fractured world. Amen.
Oseh shalom bimromav u'yaseh shalom shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav u'yaseh shalom shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen.
Just before the children go to their bedtime, I'd like them to sing again Anim Shmirot. Natalie, where are you? Where's Natalie? Where's Jessica? Come back, a quick encore.
ladies and gentlemen, I hope you found this evening as memorable as I did. And you'll go home and, please God, you'll tell your children, your grandchildren all about it. Some of your grandchildren might even be here. And I hope that, please God, the children that are singing in the choir this evening will tell their children and their grandchildren about tonight as well, because it has been a truly memorable occasion. So thank you to everybody who's taken part. Thank you for coming. I wish you all good night and a safe journey home.